Hey everybody, welcome to the Blendr Report, where news meets rational thinking. I'm your host, Jonathan Harvey. This is your co-host, Liam de Boer. Liam, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to be talking about Poilievre winning the Alberta by-election and regaining a seat in Parliament, Carney's $742 million gun buyback scam, the CRA being handed sweeping new powers while Ottawa drowns the country in debt, Canada's growth model resembling a Ponzi scheme, free speech at risk after a BC nurse was suspended and fined $94,000 for stating biological truths, and Trudeau appointed judge ruling that an illegal immigrant's wife's ADHD outweighs a deportation order. All right, let's get started. So, first off, we've got Poilievre wins Alberta by-election, regaining a seat in Parliament. Pierre Poilievre has re-entered Parliament after winning a by-election in Alberta's Battle River Crowfoot riding with over 80% of the vote. The victory comes months after losing his longtime Ottawa area seat to a Liberal challenger in April's federal election, leaving him without a voice in the House of Commons. The by-election, triggered when Conservative MP Damien Carrick stepped aside, drew unusual attention as the longest ballot committee stacked the candidate list with 201 independents to push electoral reform, forcing Elections Canada to adopt a write-in ballot system. While Poilievre's return gives him a platform to directly challenge Prime Minister Mark Carney, his leadership remains under scrutiny with a party review scheduled for January. Supporters celebrated his return, while Ontario Premier Doug Ford urged him to cooperate with the Liberal government on national issues. The exact timing of his swearing in remains uncertain until election results are formally certified. So, should Conservative supporters view this as a comeback moment or just damage control?
Really, just damage control. First of all, Doug Ford's being a Liberal dressed up as a Conservative.
Yeah.
But really, this is just a symbolic comeback, right? Because, winning in Crowfoot, it was already a landslide Conservative riding, right? So for me, it's like, okay, yeah, your base is solid, but it was a safe seat. So this doesn't prove that he can win in swing ridings like Ontario or Quebec, which is really where elections are decided. So for me, kind of symbolic, more damage control, I would say, really, than momentum. And to what you were saying, like this is what this really comes down to is what can he do when he gets back into Parliament? Because he was obviously on the sidelines there. Can he actually hold Carney accountable? Can he sort of keep the party united so that they've got an opportunity or a chance to make a difference in the upcoming election? Now, they say he's still under scrutiny because the Conservatives are going to do a party review, but the reality is that means nothing. Because one of their MPs literally just stepped aside for him. The party's obviously rallying behind him right now. You may have the odd person that's challenging him, but I would say that's more as a power play or like a Liberal plant like Doug Ford, right? So I don't think you're going to see much change inside the Conservative Party right now. They've got no power to actually do anything. So for me, this is symbolic, and I think the only way this goes well for him is if he can rally the troops and rebrand the party again in a way that makes it an option for Canadians to vote for, I guess.
Yeah, I think the leadership review is more so just a attempt to be able to formalize and be able to say, look, the party is all unified and we're all rallying behind me again, kind of put those questions behind them essentially as to whether he can lead. That being said, even once he gets back into Parliament, it's still tough to say that this does anything measurable. It gives the Conservatives maybe their best debater and best presenter in
definitely
in
a master debater.
Parliament.
Yeah.
But even that, like, it's not going to make the Conservatives stronger in terms of opposition, in the sense where it's not like they gain any seats in the Parliament or
that's
anything
what I
like
mean.
that.
It doesn't do anything. It all seems symbolic to me.
Yeah, it is funny seeing Ford come out and say, we gotta walk hand in hand with the Liberals. It's like, you're obviously not aware of what it means to be opposition.
Yeah.
And I think that is very important, especially within the parliamentary system. Like, that's the whole point of it, is to have opposition within the House and to force the governing party to gain the confidence of the other parties.
Yeah, for me, this is honestly just par for the course. Like, if he had lost, now we'd be talking shakeup.
Right.
If he had not been able to take that down, his political career is roasty toasted, done. Then I think you see someone like Danielle Smith go, what do I do here? Because I think she would be the next obvious choice. I don't think you've got anybody else. You promote within the party, you got the same people sitting around still. You know, you have Andrew Scheer, who's probably a decent guy, and he understands the administrative side, but he's a wiener. Like, no one's voting for that guy. He's not marketable. No, none of these guys. Neither was O'Toole. So you don't have any other options. Harper's still relatively young. I mean, maybe he made a comeback. I don't know. I don't know what the appetite is for him. I mean, he's a known quantity to Canadians, so maybe that would have been the option. So that's the only way I see this. Pardon me. That is the only way I would have seen this making a big difference. This was already a lock. You know what I mean? So, yeah, unfortunately, I think it's more of the same for Canadians. I think if you're a big supporter of Pierre Poilievre, it's nice to see him back in there. If you like to see divisive rhetoric in the House, this is good because you'll see a lot more of it now. Obviously, it's been a little quiet. I mean, they're on summer break right now, but it had been a little quiet because there was no one there to sort of debate but at the end of the day, like, I'm not even sure how necessary the debate or rhetoric really is for Canada. No, because like, it moves the needle a lot more in the United States than it does here because, you and I were still covering the news over the 6-8 weeks that their parliament was in session, and Carney was there, and there was still, challenges to his ideas, people still pushing back, not in a real meaningful way, because I think we've pretty much got a one-party state here, but outside the rhetoric, pretty much the same as it was when that was going on. So I'm not really sure how beneficial that side of things really are. I mean, but I guess I don't know, one of the two. You guys figure it out. You can vote on it later. But I do think it would be better for Canada if we could find a way to soften the divide. So it's interesting. I'm a supporter of Pierre. I like him. I think he's sharp. I think he'd do a great job around the country. I actually do. Providing that they've got the political will to actually do the right things for us. Because, you see people with good ideas that don't execute. But providing he could do what he says he's going to do, I think he'd be a good leader. But between now and then, I wonder what his strategy is going to be. Because for a lot of the Liberals that I spoke to during the last election, and how he was framed in the media, he was vilified and everyone hated him because he was divisive. So does he get back in and play the same game, or does he come back with a new strategy? Well, I guess we'll find out.
I think it's one of those issues where you got to steer into the skid at that point, because no matter what you do, he's going to be labeled that. Even to your point, you ask those exact people that have that opinion of him what it is they're basing that opinion on, and they don't have anything.
They use the media.
Right.
They say the media did this.
Right. So it's all just one-off headlines, and those headlines are going to be written whether he walks hand in hand in the parliament with them or whether he actually does push back and give a little bit of bite.
Okay, so what's your strategy then if you're the Conservative Party? I have an idea. I think, I don't have a comprehensive idea. But one of the things I would lean into is more medium length content like he created for the housing bubble and understanding quantitative easing. And so like those 15-minute documentaries, I think those are super effective because it gives you an opportunity to fully explain what's going on, break down complex ideas so that the public can understand them. And if you do them consistently and you continue to tackle these ideas, I think that that's an interesting way to try to reach the people because things are way more digital no matter what, right? And with all the things that they're putting in place to kind of manage censorship and blah, 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 well, none of those would really be censored, right? They're all reasonable pieces of content. I think that would be an interesting way to push back, versus just getting in the House and having conversations that, quite frankly, are mostly off topic.
I think he has to go back into the realm of pushing corruption and authoritarianism as far as the narrative goes. I mean, that's primarily our main focus here as well. So maybe I'm a little bit biased there, but I think those are the number one issues. Because even if you look back to the Chrétien and Paul Martin era, what ended that Liberal dynasty largely was another scam. It's funny, it's actually very similar to the Green Slush Fund scandal, where it was found that the Liberals, there was a big media fund, and it was found that the Liberals were shoveling up to $100 million worth of contracts into Liberal-friendly firms.
Right.
And that actual...
We're just friends with the wrong people.
Yeah, we really are. And that scandal is largely what unseated that Liberal dynasty of the Chrétien and Martin era.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's what gave Poilievre his big rise. If you look at when Poilievre was the largest within the polls, is when he was very heavy on that front, whether it be the Winnipeg lab leak scandal, whether it was the Green Slush Fund, and he was highlighting these aspects. It was as soon as he took his foot off the gas and then completely changed his strategy that he started waning. Now, obviously, bringing in Mark Carney was a major component in that as well. But I think he had one line in the debates about this as to say, Trudeau's staffers are sitting off screen right now beside you, giving you your talking points.
Right.
But he needed to go much harder on that line about illuminating the fact that this government hasn't changed. It's just new lipstick on the same pigs.
I think the challenge, I don't disagree with your messaging idea, but you can't penetrate the mainstream media this way. You can't give them the same message. It's just too difficult. Like, everyone hated Trudeau and the media started turning on him. So the media kind of went, okay, we're going to open the door a little bit for you. Because I think they also were like, writing's on the wall. This guy's got to go if the Liberals are going to win. So they opened the door and gave Poilievre that foot in so that he could sort of push that message. The thing is, right now, this is insane. Carney's ratings are still up significantly, even though the country is on fire.
And he went against his one campaign promise, which was being hard on Trump.
Correct.
Yeah.
Did nothing. Elbows down. Got it. Check. Super check. So you look at that and you just kind of go, if the polls are strong for Carney, that means the media is supporting Carney. He's increased the media budget. So they're not going to let him get his foot in this time. They're going to keep it closed because they're winning and they're going to continue getting paid, just from an economics perspective in the media landscape, right? So I think I agree with the messaging. I guess it's like the means. How are you going to do it? How are you going to get this accomplished? Because now back to the point of, well, now he's back in Parliament. Debating with the guy in Parliament and jousting with him is just going to continue to feed the media of, you're the bad guy, you're the Trump, you're the rhetoric, da-da-da-da-da. So it's like, what are you doing? What are you adding to the equation right now so that we don't get into the exact same position next time?
Again, I think that is a constant. I don't think there's anything you can do to all of a sudden get the media on your side.
No, you won't. You have to do something outside of it.
Well, and this is actually what I think Trump does so well down in the States, is he doesn't think there's anything he can do to all of a sudden become friendly with the media.
Yeah.
But he's incredibly intelligent at shaping what the media talks about.
Right.
So at least I'm going to be on home field territory here. You're at least critiquing me within the conversation of a war on drugs and corruption and cartel and fentanyl and this kind of stuff. That's now the battleground. That's where we're playing our game. If you're allowing them to have that in liberal-friendly spaces like truth and reconciliation, and this is the things that we're talking about, and then
trans.
Right, or trans, or whatever it be.
Did you see this new one that popped up the other day?
What?
When you're like in love with AI, they have a flag. They have a flag.
Yeah,
I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
They want to have a letter put on the end of the alphabet.
Do it.
Alphabet.
Add another one to it. You fucking psychos. Go ahead. Anyway.
Well, what's the plus for if we're adding new ones in there?
Yes, I thought that covered everything else. Plus,
But yeah, no, you just have to control the topic of the conversation.
I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. That's
the last thing that I wanted to touch on here before we move on to the next topic is the whole thing with the longest ballot committee. The fact that this can even continue is pretty wild, that they can stack the ballot with 201 names, which they did, and to the point where the ballot was so long that Elections Canada had to say, okay, you know what, we don't actually have a ballot list with all the candidates. You just have to manually write in. We have one line and you write in your preferred candidate. But the fact that they're allowed, I don't think had they done this in Mark Carney's ridings or any of the other states.
Yeah, there's a trap door there. So there's a trap door there where when you are representing these clients, the guy that was doing it, you have to set up separate bank accounts, like everything has to be separate and filed separately for each person, all the money that's being raised and everything like that. There's no way that guy had the time to do that or the resources to do that. There's no way. So I think he was just flying by the seat of his pants, knowing that the Liberals wouldn't call him on it. But if he did that in the Liberal riding, so the Liberals are notoriously better at managing the administrative side of things. It's just been like that since forever. So if they had seen that, they would have eaten that guy alive. Like, great, where's all your paper? Like, you're gonna be fined significantly for not doing this properly. And I guarantee there's no way he did. So there is actually a mechanism in place. It's just that there was no political will to get in their way because it was disruptive to the Conservative Party.
Yeah, and I mean it's just insane that they're able to get away with that. Even that too, that dual standard that we're seeing, where okay, you do this to our opponent, go ahead. But even during the Liberal leadership race as well, that was incredibly sketchy when they kicked Ruby Dalla out, saying, "Oh well, there's some foreign entities that are wanting to back your campaign," which I'm assuming they were alluding to India.
Sure,
but there was not really any hardcore evidence brought forth or anything.
No.
It was kind of just tossed aside. But then everything we knew about, also whether it be the WeChat scandals within that, I mean, we know too, whether you dig into Sam Cooper's work deep enough as well, you've got all of these areas within BC, in Markham especially, in Victoria, in Richmond and such, that are funneling drug money into the Liberal election campaigns. And so the fact that, that goes completely fine. Again, if you're a preferred candidate of the Liberal Party, there's no scrutiny there. So to me, all of this whole entire election system in Canada is definitely needs some reform, which I mean is what that longest ballot committee is pushing for. But I think it's funny that they're pushing for reform, but the very fact that they're able to do this to one candidate and definitely wouldn't be able to do it to another is actually evidence of the fact that reform is needed.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm not sure, again, that there's the political will to change much right now, especially considering there's no elections coming up anytime soon. So I think it's just going to sit where it is. But anyway, kind of wrap that up. It's like, yep, good to see that he's back. But for me, really, it was more symbolic. We'll see what he does in Parliament. Hopefully he can develop a new strategy that's more effective so that Canadians have an opportunity to see a conservative government in the next few years.
All right, moving on to our next story. We've got Carney's gun buyback, a $742 million scam that won't stop crime. Carney's government's long-delayed gun buyback program is set to cost Canadian taxpayers at least $742.5 million, despite offering little to no impact on violent crime. Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasundagri says the plan will be finalized by 2026, but critics argue the program is fundamentally flawed. Most firearms used in crime are smuggled, stolen, or trafficked illegally, meaning buying back legally owned quote-unquote assault-style rifles won't reduce gang violence in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal. The first phase collected only 12,000 firearms at a cost of $22 million, nearly $2,000 per gun, raising questions about efficiency. Provinces such as Alberta and Saskatchewan oppose the initiative, seeing it as punishment for legal gun owners. With uncertain estimates of how many firearms will be seized, the program looks more like political theater than public safety policy. Critics say Ottawa should prioritize border security, policing, and crime prevention instead. So, should provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan have the right to resist the program?
Yeah, I mean, they should for a few reasons. But first of all, congratulations to actually collecting a gun after how many years? Jesus Christ. They should have the right to resist because like policing priorities and property rights fall partly under provincial jurisdiction, right? So they should be a part of the conversation regardless. And then you kind of look at the economic side of things. On fiscal grounds, I would say, provincial taxpayers are being forced to bankroll this $742 million buyback program, which, like you said, the Liberals admit won't even reduce crime. And I also think that resistance is sort of necessary for legitimacy, because, each province in Canada, rural specifically compared to Ottawa, they face very different realities in these kind of urban centers. So I think forcing a one-size-fits-all policy sort of undermines not just trust in the provincial governments or premiers' ability to run their own ship, but also it ignores local needs. So I think it sets a bad precedent when you're like, well, no, we can do this and blanket it and it's just fine. It's like, well, not really. Actually, a lot of these people use these. They're used for hunting. They're used for other things. When you live out in an area like that in living in downtown Toronto, obviously I could say you probably don't need an assault rifle down there. Should you be able to have one? Yeah, 100%. I don't care. But I can understand that you'd have a different approach.
It's wild to me that this is the conversation and that Canadians at large are just completely silent on issues like this. I mean, at least down in the States, gun ownership is part of the Constitution. And so there's a little bit more of cultural pushback against this. But the very fact that Canadians can't see the dangers of disarmament and being like, oh yeah, let's give the government, who is consistently failing at dealing with crime, all of the firearms in the nation and essentially disarm the entire population.
Except for the criminals. We're going to let them keep all their shit because we can't actually stop them.
And actually, even when we do stop them, we're going to let them out the very next day.
Yes.
And
here's your gun back.
So the fact that like the average Canadian isn't, at least sniffing what's going on here is deeply concerning.
I think it's different. I don't think it's necessarily that they can't smell what's happening. I think that the propaganda and the branding behind guns is the difference maker here. You talk to anybody, like my mom's just, she pretends she's in politics, but she's not at all. She'll just give you a headline. I don't like guns, Jonathan. Okay, well, why? No explanation whatsoever. But that's the general sentiment. That's everybody's like, well, I don't like guns. They're dangerous. So like, if you look at the branding and the marketing behind it, when do you see guns? When do you see guns ever if you're a Canadian? In the news when something bad happens. That's really it. That's only time. And now because we don't even have castle laws, if someone shoots someone in their house because they broke into it, who may have also had a gun, the homeowner goes to jail. So if you go, well, I don't want a gun then because I don't want to go to jail. They can just take all my shit. I'll just leave my keys at the door. Perfect. Good call. So you kind of look at how we view guns in society here, and it's very negative and very different. So people don't want to be on the wrong side of that conversation. It's like challenging where the trans conversation is at or the LGBTQ expansion. You know what I mean? You're just, well, I don't want to be in the wrong. I don't want to be a bigot. So you're not a bigot. You're asking questions. It's perfectly fine. But it's the branding. So, I met some people when I was in Texas, and it's interesting. One of them compared guns to having dogs. Like, oh, did you have a dog growing up? Well, yeah, I've always had dogs. I love dogs. Well, we've always had guns. That's how we see them. We don't see them as a problem. We've just always had them in our lives. We know how to use them. We respect them. We treat them well. They help us. They're for self-defense. They're for hunting. We don't see them as a negative. We just see them as part of our lives in a positive way. Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. So that's the branding behind guns. So no one can take your gun because you see it. I know it's not like a dog, but I can appreciate the comparison. It's part of your life. It's part of who you are. You want to keep it. But in Canada, we're like, no. We don't want anything to do with that. I don't want to be on the wrong side of that. So some of it is what you're saying, but I think a bigger part of it is the fact that it's just bad branding and people are just afraid of them.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was kind of saying about the cultural tide toward it all. But even, your point about the castle laws and people's ideas on that. Oh, well, I don't want a gun because it could get me in trouble if I used it if somebody broke into my house. I actually recently was just having this conversation with somebody in regards to self-defense in Canada, and they were bringing that up, but not even just within the realm of firearms, but just in general.
Sure.
They were like, oh yeah, you can get in legal trouble in Canada for protecting yourself. We don't really have good self-protection rights, and I agree with that. But to me, I was like, I would much rather deal with the legal consequences of successfully protecting myself.
Yes.
Than to allow somebody to put me in the hospital, hurt my family or friends or what? Like at that point, if somebody breaks in, like it's rules of the jungle. I'm forgetting about every law that's on. I'm not going to be like, actually by law, like all of a sudden I've got to pull back here. No, it's go time.
I'm unloading clips, dog.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is it. We're going to war. You're in my home. We go to war.
But it's wild to me that many people don't have that mentality.
Most people
oh my God,
bitches.
I have to let this intruder beat the shit out of me because the politicians say so.
I wonder what it is. So here's another thought though for people out there. I think there are people that run towards the fire, run away from the fire, and I think some of it can be trained into you. So I'm not writing everybody off, but I think a lot of it is hardwiring. Do you run towards the fire or away from the fire when you see trouble? I run towards it. But my father-in-law, bless his heart, I'm super, super lucky. My in-laws are amazing people. I'm very, very grateful. Now, he doesn't like guns, but he's also of the mind, well, why would I want a gun, Jonathan? I won't know what to do. I will panic. I will panic in that moment, and I'll probably get shot with it myself. They'll take my gun and they'll shoot me. I go, well, Ken, you're lucky you got me around then. You're lucky I'm here. You're good. I should have a gun because I will handle myself and the situation. But I think a lot of people also fall into that category where it's like, oh, something's on fire and they freeze or don't know what to do. Or it's like, just take all my stuff and leave. And hey, look, I'm not trying to be hard on anybody. It's just on the topic of this conversation, I can understand why people don't want to have guns if that's how they actually feel. And if they're being honest with themselves, I'm sure a reasonable number of people fall into that category. Probably shouldn't have a gun then. I can see that. So I think there's that group of people as well.
Yeah. And my answer to them would be, you're actually more likely to be in that scenario because you have that mentality. Because if you have the mentality of, okay, I am not, like, if you both are willing to protect yourself, but you're also in a position that you can protect yourself, whether it be with something like this or whether you're actually just physically in shape and you're strong and you're actually intimidating, the chances of somebody attacking you are far less likely.
Yes.
And so it's this kind of like, I mean, it's maybe a bad analogy, but like the mutually assured destruction in a sense where it's like, oh, if you come in here, yeah, maybe you might actually get the best of me, but you're at least going to pay a cost for trying to confront somebody like 100%. Me. Whereas that, say, weak person that is just completely afraid of, even if I have a trump card, I'm afraid that that I'm gonna be so weak with it that somebody else is gonna take it and use it against me. Well, you're now just you're the exact profile that these people target.
I agree with you. It's the same thing with that guy that, I hate talking about this, but that scooped all those kids. There was an interview with a guy who basically was in child trafficking and stolen hundreds of kids. And the big thing was, he goes, look for a weak dad. Mm-hmm. You just look for a weak dad and you got your target. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, try me, bro.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the world we live in today. So it is what it is. You know what I mean? So again, I don't mean to be disparaging to people that maybe aren't and maybe don't see the world the same way or operate the same way as you and I do. I just think that's part of the reason why they'll jump on board with this whole, like, yeah, ban the guns and don't have this kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. But again, it goes back to what I said earlier. A one-size-fits-all solution doesn't work. And for those people, maybe you shouldn't have a gun. But it doesn't mean people like me shouldn't. Because the thing is, you want a good guy with a gun if there's bad guys with a gun. And then people like, well, then maybe there should just be no guns. Sure, we could all live in a utopia. That'd be wonderful. And not work and just you do whatever you want all the time. That'd be great. But that's not the world we live in. So the known quantity is crime happens, criminals have weapons. And now the government's trying to take the guns from the good guys. What are we talking about?
Yeah. And actually, even too, like on that note, okay, who takes the guns? It's the highly corrupt authoritarian people.
Yeah, yes.
like what? Like even if they were right, I could see their argument in the sense where if government was an actual benevolent actor that does take care of everyone's safety, then you can start. I still would have many issues with the argument, even just for the fact that, you know,
personal freedom. Yeah.
Well, not even just the personal freedom, but even if they are resourceful and had the will to actually protect people in society, I'm not even going to be able to call the police fast enough if somebody breaks into my house, let alone them actually get there.
0% chance.
And so it's just, to me, it's a null argument. But yeah, no, this whole thing, I think, is a very slippery slope to the point where, yeah, you all of a sudden, because I mean, we can clearly see it, that the government has no actual ambitions of cracking down on crime.
No.
And so you just put those two together. You go, okay, a government that is letting crime run rampant while trying to disarm the law-abiding gun owners. I think everybody should be able to put two and two together, but doesn't seem like most Canadians can. Hey everyone, we hope you're enjoying this episode. If so, please consider leaving us a kind review wherever you're listening. If even just a quarter of our weekly audience did so, we'd instantly become one of the top-rated Canadian podcasts. We appreciate you helping us out, and now back to the show. All right, moving on to our next story. We've got CRA to be granted excessive powers over Canadians while Ottawa drowns the nation in debt. The Canada Revenue Agency, or CRA, is preparing to expand its audit powers in ways critics argue will punish ordinary Canadians while failing to fix systemic inefficiencies. Proposed amendments to the Income Tax Act would impose harsher fines, shorten response times, and even expose taxpayers to perjury charges over documentation disputes. The reforms centralize control under a digital compliance system that reduces opportunities to challenge or appeal decisions, effectively silencing objections. Ottawa frames the changes as efficiency, but they come after years of economic mismanagement, ballooning debt, and a 48% increase in CRA bureaucracy with declining service quality. The result is a heavier burden on Canadians already strained by inflation and high taxes, while the government avoids accountability for its own failures. Critics warn that these changes represent bureaucratic overreach, placing citizens at greater risk of financial and legal jeopardy under a system that prioritizes revenue collection over fairness. So are these CRA reforms really about efficiency, or are they a cash grab to cover government mismanagement?
This is 100% cash grab. This isn't about efficiency. It's a shakedown. The Liberals blew billions of dollars they didn't have, and now the CRA is being armed like a government, basically like government muscle to squeeze every dime out of every Canadian. This is where this is going. Here's the thing. If it were about efficiency, why would the CRA bureaucracy balloon by 48%?
Right.
What are we talking about here? It's like, well, we spent all this money. We've only got one way to take it back from you, is increase this workforce, which is a modern day. It's a modern day militia. That's what this is, right? It's a cash grab to cover their failures. It's plain and simple. I think that this is going to be very challenging because instead of due process, we're going to have these shorter timelines, harsher penalties, and fewer appeals that will make it very easy for the taxman to crush you. And this is something that pisses me off right now. I was having a conversation with one of my friends today, who's in a similar boat to me in that the CRA has been hassling us both, even though we've done zero wrong. I have the CRA up my ass for a couple companies right now, and it's all about HST that's already been assessed. Now they're reassessing everything, and they're literally just making things up. They're saying, well, now we don't believe in any of these expenses. So I go, okay, here's all the stuff you need. Well, now we need more stuff. Okay, here's all the stuff you asked for. Everything. Okay, well, now we need more stuff. Okay, why didn't you guys just ask for everything at once? Because this is just costing me more money legally. Now we're talking 10, 15 grand a year in legal bills. So then you give them everything they want, and then they go, we think you're lying about revenue. Sorry, you wouldn't accept my ITCs because you said this was an expense problem. I've proven that that's not the case. Now you're going to go after revenue? But look at the company historically. This doesn't track. What you're even saying is just nonsense. So what they're doing right now is they're making shit up, and then they're making you prove it. And then if they catch you on something, they pin you to the wall. If they don't, they just keep on going till you just give them some money and say, thanks very much. That's the system we have right now. It is brutal. So the CRA is always operated as a trust system in Canada, right? IRS is different. In Canada, they trust you. You just submit your forms and that's that. They have a couple questions, they ask, and that's how it goes. But now they go, we don't trust you anymore. So now you need to prove all these things, and we're going to come after you with this. And what this is doing is it's not only enabling, it's giving them more power to make it worse. So it's already terrible, and now they're going to legalize the current approach that they're using, which is basically fucking harassment. I mean, if you own a small business in this country and you haven't had the CRA up your ass because of your HST, I mean, you count yourself lucky because it's coming. Look at, like I said, even the expanded size. And the thing is, my buddy's business is significantly bigger. Like, definitely medium, maybe large scale. I'm not even sure. I'm not sure what numbers they use to quantify it, but he'd be on the bubble in my opinion. And they're on him for stuff like he had a third-party assessment done from Deloitte. So that's like one of the top financial firms in the world. Everything was clean as a whistle because they're looking at selling company. And then the CRA came after them after they'd had the assessment. Now, of course, the CRA doesn't know they have the assessment, but I'm just saying this to say, like, hey, look, this is how tight a ship they are running as they're trying to sell their company. And the CRA is challenging them over multiple years for tens of millions of dollars of common expenses that they've got no trouble proving. And the CRA won't go away. They're just continuing. It's just like, for me, here's how I see it. Unfortunately, these are the set of rules we have to play by. So just give them what they need. Hopefully it goes away. Now they're being very, very aggressive, and I don't approve of their current approach. But if you give them a thread, right now, here's what I'm identifying. Because they changed their strategy with me and go, well, okay, you've proven your expenses are real, but now we want to go after revenues. So now I've come to understand that if you give them a thread, they will knit a sweater. If you give them something to go, oh, there's one piece of revenue. It's like, well, no, this was a holding company, and actually that was a loan in. Well, I don't have that, so now I'm assessing that as taxable. And then they're like, okay, now I want all the bank statements. I want this, I want that. If you give them a thread, they will knit a sweater. That's what these people are doing right now. This is a cash grab to cover government failures. And here's the problem. I think this is the new way in Canada now. I don't think that they're going to go, we've made a huge mistake. We've doubled our national debt. We put ourselves in a pickle. Our GDP per capita is diving. We have all these problems. Let's bolster the CRA to fix it. I think they're going, this is the new CRA. Get comfortable, Canada.
Yeah, well, I think they're definitely just targeting whoever they think they can get away with, or at least not their friends, right? And it's wild, too, that, okay, yeah, I really struggle with this kind of hypocrisy on the one front, where you look at it and you go, the politicians are shoveling money to their friends, and we know this. The Auditor General has even found this. So people within the government are highlighting this. And then there's absolutely nothing there. But then, to your point, the average person just gets bent over. It feels very like that classic Soviet line of one of the judges through the Bolshevik era, when they were doing their big crackdown on quote unquote corruption, but it was really just any dissent. And the judge said, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. And it's just, put me somebody there. I'll find something. And to your point is, they'll just go, okay, we need XYZ. That didn't give us what we needed to hammer you. Give us ABC now. Yes. And then it's just keep going until you finally got something. And you also look at who ends up getting penalized throughout all of this. Even if, okay, let's say, because the classic left-wing argument, the people on the ground that would, your family members at the dinner table who would argue that, well, the CRA needs more ability to go after these people that are evading taxes and really crack down on those billionaires that are evading their taxes. You already see it before these powers or not, is that the people who end up getting bent over the most, actually, this is even by the Fraser Institute as well, is people making between 30 and 60K a year in Canada.
Right.
Those are who pay the highest. And because
they can't afford to push back for the extra 1,000 or 2, they just pay it.
Exactly.
And that's what this comes down to. That's exactly what this is. This isn't about going after the rich. Here's the thing. Anytime anybody goes, well, we're going to get those rich people that are evading taxes, they're not evading taxes. They're doing their taxes properly. You're never getting your hands on any of that money. That's not how this works. They pay the right people to do the job correctly. And if you come at them, they have lawyers that can eat you up anyway. You're not getting any more money from those people. And if you implement new policy they don't like, what do? They leave your country, which is exactly why you're seeing a mass exodus out of the UK right now and places like Canada. They're done with this shit. So that's not a game you can actually play. These policies only affect everyday Canadians.
And also it's hilarious too that our current prime minister also, it hardly came up throughout the elections, but it briefly did, about how he was also very much one of the major players in helping Brookfield offshore their money in order to avoid the taxes.
So let's sign the documents.
And so you go, we've got a government that is being headed by a man who is in the financial sector and was helping billions of dollars evade taxes in Canada, simultaneously giving more powers to the revenue agency. It's so clear what this is. And even to actually, you said it to me the other day in regards to personal stuff, but you said, I've always looked at it this way, that if I'm short on cash, I've got a revenue problem, not an expense problem.
Yes.
I tend to think about it a little bit more, but that's exactly how the government looks at it, is they go, we just have a revenue problem. We just have to find revenue somewhere. It's nothing to do with our operations or our expenses, or that we need to cut back on inefficiencies.
Things are good here. Yeah.
Things are good. Just get more money. And actually, I lost it the other day. This is outside of the CRA, but I got another one of those. I think this is my 4th of the year of one of those speeding cam tickets.
Yeah.
I got another one for like $85, $90 or whatever. So I put somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $500 towards that this year.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got, again, it was 53 in a 40, 13 over, like, fuck right off.
Yep. That's not even that. Like, you wouldn't even get pulled over for that.
No.
Like, they don't bother you. If you're going 14, the only time, because that's when the points start. The only time they ever pull you for going 14 over is if they want you.
Well, also, too, just to put it in perspective, like 13 over, you hit a downslope in 10 seconds later, you're doing 13 over.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so it's like, it's ridiculous.
I agree.
Like, I'm not even a big speeder. I'm not a fast driver.
No.
But
I have my moments. I'm usually pretty good now. I got it out of my system, but
But it's so clear to me. And, I was even talking with a family member about this, and they were like, well, I think it does actually work, and it makes our communities a little safer, because I got hit with 2 of them. And then, I started looking out for them, and I'm driving a little bit slower in those areas now. And I said, look, okay, that's great for your argument. But that still doesn't mean it's the reason they're doing it when, again, going back to even just the topic of the last discussion, when you're letting criminals go free, you don't get to tell me that you're doing anything for public safety.
No.
Whether you're trying to slow down speed or buy back guns, if you're putting cartel members back out on the street after you catch them with $50 million of cocaine.
Yes.
You're not doing anything for safety.
No,
nothing.
Enough.
And so all of this is just a big revenue scheme to me.
Hey, what's that saying that you and I always throw back and forth? I hate this place.
All right, moving on to our next story. We've got Canada's growth model resembles a Ponzi scheme. Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West has warned that Canada's economy has become dangerously reliant on real estate and immigration-driven population growth at the expense of industries that once sustained long-term prosperity. In BC, real estate now accounts for nearly 30% of GDP, while forestry, mining, fisheries, and even tech have shrunk in importance. West argues that policy choices, not inevitability, steered capital into land speculation, leaving just 4% of Metro Vancouver's land for employers who produce or export goods. Immigration has kept the system afloat, with Canada adding 1.27 million people in 2023 alone, straining infrastructure and driving housing demand. West compares the model to a Ponzi scheme, dependent on constant inflows of buyers, vulnerable to collapse if growth slows. He points to Ireland, Spain, and the US subprime crisis as a warning. His solution: revive resource industries, boost productivity, and reassess immigration levels before a painful reckoning arrives. So are politicians willing to confront these uncomfortable truths, or is denial the easier path?
Well, I mean, denial pays better than honesty, right? Especially as a politician. I mean, what's the number one rule these days? Don't admit you're wrong. Which is so dark. I mean, just in terms of how that contrasts with real life. But they profit from the illusion of endless growth, right? Like, so sky high home values make voters feel wealthier on paper, and obviously immigration props up GDP. So there's little reason to admit that this isn't working right now. And if you consider challenging the system, you have to go, what do I have to do that? So you're talking about the real estate lobby, immigration bureaucracy, and even central banks, because they play a key role in sort of bringing this all together, bankrolling everything, but also in campaigning and shaping policy. So I just don't think the political will exists. I think it's too risky for most politicians. So when will they actually face it? Well, they'll face it when crisis hits, right? Like Ireland and like Spain, when the bubble bursts, then they'll go, oh, something was wrong. But by then, they'll blame somebody else. They'll have Trump to blame. They'll have tariffs to blame. They'll have a war to blame. They'll have something else. None of it will be like, yeah, we kind of cocked that one up. Sorry, my bad. Never. So that's the cycle. That's what we're involved in. I mean, if I'm being honest, maybe to add some context or some value here, it's like, where are we in that cycle? If the cycle has 10 points, I think we're at number 8. That's what I think. I think it's going to come crashing down, in the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, we're already on that way. You even see it now with the amount of condos that are being listed in places like Toronto and stuff, with just seemingly no buyers. You look at the price decrease that is starting to happen even on the sold units, sorry.
Yeah, the SNLR, the sales to new listing ratio number that we talked about last time, is in a very bad position. That's reminiscent of the late 80s to mid 90s.
Right. And I think it's only going to be worse this time, because just like Brad West is pointing out, okay, you have a housing, and this is actually exactly something that I talk about, because people will say, well, we had bad economic times in the 80s. It's completely different, because we don't have other industries to fall back on. As you're saying this, like, okay, yeah, your economy goes down, but what do you actually turn it around with? We don't we don't have those industries.
This is exactly what I was saying last time, because this went from a quote unquote housing shortage to a cost of living crisis. Now, if we have a housing shortage, I can show you a couple levers we can pull to try to correct course. If you have a cost of living crisis, how do you correct it?
Right.
There's only one way, and that's to lower costs significantly, because wages can't catch up. So so you have to have a crash. There's no other way. In my opinion, there's no other way. I mean, someone might be able to challenge that knows a little more and say, well, Jonathan, we could do this and this and this and this and this. Maybe there's a really, really complicated way that could ease this a little bit, but I think the reality is you got to come crashing down.
Well, and just building on it yet again, of the current prime minister we've got, right? Okay, not only is it funny that that he's shipping money out Canada, or helping major investors like Brookfield do so. But he is also, when it comes to this, like, Brookfield is a major player within the real estate game in Canada. And so, okay, our prime minister and his inner circle is completely dependent on this Ponzi scheme. They're part of the architects of it. So you have somebody who is largely responsible, or at least has played a part in creating this Ponzi scheme, as the head of the country right now. And so that, when it goes to, is denial the easier path, I think 100% it is, because these people profit off of it. They profit off of the collapse. So it's not a big deal to them. Actually, even remember, you saw the housing minister talk about how, housing prices don't need to come down and all this kind of stuff. So it doesn't seem like this is in their mind at all. But then I think this also goes into a deeper conversation about, what does it mean to have a strong nation and a strong economy? Because this is a point that Nietzsche made, and we were talking about this the other day as well, where, okay, all of these nations right now, and I can understand this in a world that is largely built upon the capitalism framework, that they see, well, the sole marker for the success of my country is GDP go up. If GDP goes up, our country's doing great. But that's such a weak measurement when you consider exactly this point. You can make your GDP go up by artificially inflating your real estate market and making things more expensive. You haven't actually become more productive.
Anything. Yes.
You haven't actually become more stable. You've actually just inflated prices, so you've artificially made GDP go up. That's not a good thing.
No, I think you have to pair that with productivity, which ours is down significantly. Right. And then GDP per capita as well. So you're not just bolstering it with shitty immigration.
Right.
So it's the same thing. I agree, man.
And then you look at even just GDP per capita. That is completely stagnated. So yeah, sure, collectively the pie is growing because our population is growing at such a massive degree, but the people that are inside the country aren't actually doing any better. And you look at how this sets up the future generations of Canadians. All right, we've already got that, famous tagline that gets tossed around by conservatives a lot, right? That the entire generation has been priced out of home ownership, which is true. But then also look at this other factors as well. It's not even just that the pricing of homes has gone up, but it's also that the employment opportunities for this upcoming generation are shrinking as well. So it's not just that things aren't becoming more expensive, it's that their opportunity to make money is actually diminishing as well.
Significantly.
So that's a really bad, if you were to put that if you were to plot that onto a graph, that's really bad, because you've got purchasing power going down and you've got price of assets going up.
Yes.
That's really bad. But even this too, you see this when I feel really bad for young Canadians that are in that 15 to 20 range right now that have to walk out into this society and start adulthood per se, is because they're going to be smacked with a very rude awakening when you start considering even things like the youth unemployment is skyrocketing right now, mainly because now they have to compete for jobs with temporary foreign workers that are being subsidized by the government. So they take taxpayer money from Canadians and then subsidize programs that hire foreign people for those jobs. So yeah, the idea of at any of this point that, okay, because our GDP is going up, that means our country is becoming stronger, is a complete illusion.
I agree. I mean, you're in this position right now where everything feels like it's being artificially inflated to continue to maintain a facade. That's what a lot of this feels like. And for anybody paying attention, there's so many markers on the far end of the data to just disprove it, or at least show why it's artificially inflated or why it's inaccurate or really what's going on. But the thing is, until you start seeing the dominoes fall in a big way, not just the cost of living, which you're seeing, but you start seeing a crash and bankruptcies and foreclosures and people losing their homes, and you start seeing a dip in the market, because housing ends up being that one proxy everybody pays attention to. Until you see that, Because they own the media, they're going to be able to maintain this false narrative. Before we move on to the next topic, this episode is brought to you by The Tallow Truth. Would you ever eat your skincare? No. Then why put it on your skin, your body's biggest organ? Most skincare products are loaded with chemicals that absorb straight into your body. That hydrating cream might as well come with a hazard warning. Your skin needs real nourishment, not lab experiments. That's why I use F-Bomb from The Tallow Truth, made from grass-fed, grass-finished tallow. It's also hormone-free, antibiotic-free, steroid-free, GMO-free, and even vaccine-free. Nothing artificial, nothing toxic, just results. I've been using F-Bomb from The Tallow Truth for almost a year now, and honestly, I'm never going back. My skin feels hydrated, my fine lines are reducing, and I just look better. Plus, I'm already 40. This shit's not going to get any easier for me. But what makes The Tallow Truth even better is that they're a freedom-first brand that supports Blendr News and everything we stand for. They even offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you've got nothing to lose. So, go to thetallowtruth.com/blender and use code BLENDR, BLENDR, for 15% off. This includes 15% off already discounted bundles too, so you can save as much as 40%. That's thetallowtruth.com/blender, code BLENDR at checkout for 15% off.
All right, free speech at risk. BC nurse suspended and fined $94,000 for stating biological truths. Amy Ham, a British Columbia nurse and National Post columnist, has been suspended for 1 month and fined nearly $94,000 after a disciplinary panel ruled her online statements about transgender issues being discriminatory. Between 2018 and 2021, Ham criticized the inclusion of transgender women in female-only spaces, defended sex-segregated facilities, and supported the I Love J.K. Rowling campaign. She argues her comments were factual, rooted in biological science, and reflective of mainstream views on women's rights. The disciplinary panel, however, framed its decision as a defense of non-discrimination, citing the trust healthcare professionals must uphold. Ham has appealed to the BC Supreme Court, temporarily halting the penalty. Critics warn the ruling sets a dangerous precedent, punishing factual statements that challenge ideological orthodoxy. The case raises broader concerns about freedom of expression, professional regulation, and whether Canadians risk sanctions for engaging in debate on politically sensitive issues. Does Amy Ham's suspension mark a turning point in Canada's free speech debate?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks like a watershed moment, doesn't it? Because she wasn't punished for malpractice or mistreating patients, but for just expressing views that were grounded in biology, like in reality, in a field that she's in. So for me, it just seems insane. What this does is it shifts professional regulation from guarding competence to policing ideology, right? And I think it really exposes the shrinking space for dissent. Now, we saw this happen with Jordan Peterson, in a sense. Now, he's a very well-known character and very controversial in if you look at mainstream orthodoxy. So you go, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. But this doesn't track. This is just, and this was several years ago. And nothing she did was egregious. You know what I mean? None of it was like, she really wasn't out to lunch. She really wasn't over the top. She really didn't, suggest that, I don't know. She didn't do anything that was insane to me. To me, this was just like, hey, here's how I feel about this. This is science. This is reality.
Well, and I think in both cases with her and Peterson, it's really important to note that the comments that they are cracking down on and trying to remove their license or fine them on were made on social media in public forums. So it's not even, if this is something that they said to, even though I would disagree with it, still it's of a different severity if this is how they were conducting themselves in private with clients or with patients.
Yes.
And then complaints were made by those patients or whatever. But it's the fact that they're saying this in the modern public square and just voicing their opinions on cultural issues, and then their practice is being attacked.
You're right. It's private and professional life crossing over,
right.
And now you having control over my private life. It basically says that there's an unwritten gag order, which is basically obey the ideology du jour, or you pay the heavy price, which is mental.
Well, that's actually largely Hannah Arendt's definition of totalitarianism, is when the lines between politics and private life in public life just become completely eroded, that you can't get away from it ever. And that's largely why I started even talking about all of this kind of stuff, is because I realized it. People used to think, oh, well, if I just don't get involved in the political discussions, then my life will continue on. It's kind of like there is the political sphere and you can stay out of it. And it's like, no, but now everything is political.
Yes.
When biological sex, when you can't say that you don't think men who are in dresses should be in women's bathrooms, like that is now grounds for nearly 6-figure fines.
You also risk losing your livelihood.
I'm sorry, there's no difference between the political sector or the political conversation in general life now.
Right. And for me, I just don't understand how this gets to leak into losing your livelihood. I don't agree with it. I think it's mental. I think this is insane. And the thing is, like, you see this in this field, but I'd be willing to bet if someone from like Ellis Dawn said it, who was a C-level manager who came out and talked this nonsense, they'd probably be under similar scrutiny, which is wild. Ellis Dawn being construction. You know what I mean? Like, I worked in construction for a lot of years. It's crude. It's fun. It's a bunch of bros. Sure, there's girls there too, but it's like the service industry as well, like bars and restaurants. Like, it's just, it's a good time. Let's say, sure, it can be a little inappropriate. Is my point. Whereas she's not in that field whatsoever. But I'm willing to bet if you're saying something in an important position now, even at Ellis Dawn or even with the Earl's corporate company, the restaurants or something like that, Sir Corp, whatever it is. I don't know what they're called these days. Anyway, I think you're falling under the same umbrella. I think that there's this line now that exists regardless of what industry you're in. If you're important, if you're in an industry where you have an education in this stuff, you have to buy into the orthodoxy full like wholesale. You can't have an opinion based on science or biology, which is crazy. It has to all be ideology. And then if you're not even in the field where this is relevant, you toe the line or you pay the price. This country is crazy.
Well, the craziness is on full display with our last topic, which is a Trudeau-appointed judge rules wife's ADHD outweighs a deportation order. So the Federal Court of Canada has blocked the deportation of an Indian national without legal status, ruling that removing him would cause irreparable harm to his wife, who has ADHD. Immigration officials sought immediate deportation, but Justice Avi Yao Go decided that personal hardship argued that personal hardship outweighed the public interest in enforcing removal orders. The ruling does not grant permanent status, but allows the man to stay until his application is processed. Justice Go, a Trudeau-appointed judge and self-described activist with a career focused on racial equality advocacy, has drawn criticism for allowing ideology to influence impartial judicial duty. Critics argue that this decision undermines the principle of equal application of the law and risks creating precedents where immigration enforcement is weakened by subjective claims of victimhood. The case highlights concerns that Canada's justice system is becoming increasingly shaped by ideology rather than consistent legal standards. So does this case signal a broader drift in Canada toward ideology-driven law rather than impartial standards?
Yeah, 100% it does. It just says that ideology is creeping into rulings because deportation law is meant to apply equally. That should, like, bottom line. Yet here, because of subjective hardships, it's overriding these clear immigration violations. Look, this sets a very dangerous precedent, but I feel like this is where Canada's going. It's two-tier justice, and it's support Canada 2.0, not Canada 1.0. What I mean is, if you're from here and you were raised here, and people can argue what that definition means, I don't really give a fuck. But what I'm saying is, if you're not a new immigrant, you're Canada 1.0. Even immigrants that have been here for 20 years, they're all pissed off at the new immigrants that have been here for 5 because of how they're acting and how they're behaving. Not all, blanket statement, you understand, contextualize people. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you're getting a lot of that. You're also seeing a lot of people that have been here for 20 years from a lot of other countries moving to smaller towns because they don't like how the new wave of immigration is making them look and how the country's operating. They did assimilate to a certain degree, so there was some cultural crossover. That's not happening anymore. But the thing is, our government is supporting Canada 2.0. Just keep going. Multiculturalism is our strength. You don't have to go to jail. You don't have to leave and if you break the law. It's fine. So this is just the way the system's going. What concerns me when you see these judges elevate these social or political causes above legal consistency is that it continues to erode public trust. I don't know how anybody believes in our system anymore. If you're part of Canada 1.0. I mean, here's what I was saying to someone the other day. They sent me this video of this Muslim woman beaking off online saying that Canada is a colonial country and she's not at all Canadian and it's going to fall and it's going to be Islamic and blah, blah, blah. And I go, like, if you say that, you should just be kicked out of the country. I'm sorry, you should just be gone. That's how this should shake out. But instead, what it is I identify, I go, oh, that's Canada 2.0, because we're built on social programs. So if we don't replace our populace, the country falls. So Canada 2.0, and I am not on the invite list. I know for sure that I'm not, and for a lot of reasons, not just because of the color of my skin, but it's also because I'm an entrepreneur, because I have a different set of values than the direction they're going. It is not like multiculturalism is not a strength. The predominant culture wins. And if it's going in that direction, then I have to get out before it gets there. And, the conservatives did say they were introducing legislation to take immigration status out of rulings, but I don't see any other parties supporting this. I don't think that's even going to happen. And that to people should be another sign that this kind of shit is going to continue happening.
Well, and that's a very tough system to live under because, all right, what are my options as a citizen living under this judicial system? Is that, okay, now I either have to go along with believing that the law should be unequally applied to differing groups, or that I just don't believe the legal system actually works. Both are very dangerous roads to walk down. And unfortunately, I'm definitely in the latter, where I just don't think it works. But even this whole case, you're talking about Canada 2.0. This judge is a perfect example of it. Just listen to her resume here. And this is on the official federal court page. So like, this is what the federal courts, when they get, hey, give us a 300-word rundown of your career as in law in order for us to give the Canadian people to say that, these are the people serving you. Madame Justice Go has 30 years of advocacy and litigation experience on behalf of low-income racialized clients. So right there, that means I've got 30 years of justice activism under my belt.
Correct.
As a first-generation Canadian, she has devoted her entire legal career to breaking down barriers for marginalized groups. So it's not to serve the law. My primary focus is to make the law serve a certain type of person.
Yes.
She has appeared before all levels of court, including the Supreme Court of Canada, on behalf of clients and public interest litigants seeking to promote equity and racial justice. So woke ideology. She served as a bencher of Law Society for Ontario for 14 years and sat on the LSO's Access to Justice Committee, Equity and Aboriginal Issues Committee, and Human Rights Monitoring Group. So this girl is
She's done a lot of political activism. She's like the Virtue Olympics winner. That's a gold medal right there.
Right. But okay, now think about this. What other nation, now even just flip the script, if this was going to China, do you think that let's say I was in law, do you think China would allow me to immigrate to China and say, openly declare that my goal is to make the law serve, say, capitalistic enterprise or entrepreneurs or business, what is against their ideology of communism, and then they would appoint me a judge?
No, you'd be the third Michael.
Yeah, you'd be like, what the hell? No country would do this, where you go, okay, we're again, if it's kids of kids and citizenship and born here and whatever, but right, like, okay, first generation Canadian is what it says. So yeah, like the fact that, okay, we're allowing people from other countries that are actively hostile to us, as we spent an hour and 15 minutes in a documentary exposing how this very nation seeks to destabilize our communities. It's wild to me that any part.
It's a good perspective. That's a good perspective to offer. It's funny, I saw Rogan say this the other day, and I think it's a good question to ask. It's racism and it's bigotry if you want to stop people coming in to your country at a certain rate, or you want to stop people like this having the ability to push back and basically erode your culture from the inside. Except when they do it in China or Japan, no one bats an eye. Everyone goes, that's fine, perfectly fine. Except here, you're a huge problem.
Right.
I go, shouldn't that apply equally? Why does that get to be like that? I mean, take Poland, for example. Poland basically said no to immigration. So their rate of, which you'll have to definitely bleep that out at that rate, went down. But all of the other countries that had massive immigration, the average that I saw went up 500% in Europe. You go, okay, there's a correlation here, guys. And it's not that everybody's bad. It's that there's confusion in how these cultures operate and what they think of women and how they treat them. So it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply the same. So here are the results. I just don't understand how many things people have to see before they go, okay, enough is enough. And then I go back to what I was saying before. Canada 2.0. The country is changing. There's a new face of Canada. It's happening.
It's Trudeau's post-national agenda, really.
It's correct. And I'm not even sure it was Trudeau's. I think it was beyond him. I don't think he has the intelligence to even see or understand that this was sort of an inevitability. I think he just had talking points, then went rogue. I think that's basically what happened with him. And anyway, I think no matter how you shake it out, I've come to terms with the fact that that's what's happening here. This is changing no matter what we do. It just is. It's just a matter of how long will it take to change and what will it look like when the chips fall? Who will be in charge? What will be the predominant culture? I don't know, but it will be changing. And for primarily economic reasons, I believe. I don't think it's some dark, deep, communism and Marxism has to win. I don't think so, as much as I'm like, this is economics. This is basic. That's what I can at least bank on. I can look at that and objectively say, well, yeah, unless you want the country to fall under its own weight, you have to replace the populace. And because we've got a declining birth rate, where are you going to go? That's it. That's what it is. And then you pick nations that don't mind being worker bees by and large through an average. That's what you got. And that just comes with a ton of baggage. And the only way to implement these things is exactly like what they're doing right now. None of these laws apply if you're part of Canada 2.0. Come on in. Don't worry about it. You got ADHD? Just sit down. Yeah. Take a load off. You're good.
Yeah. And I think actually just to, whether it's economic, I think different people do this for different reasons. Is you look at somebody like Andrew Lobachowski, who is the Polish psychiatrist who watched in real time and tried to document like the psychological underpinnings of the communists taking over Poland. And he put people into separate groups. So you have your essential psychopaths, which are just the power-hungry individuals. They don't care about anything other than power. So I think those people are certain ruler types. I've actually started to think that we should be a little bit more careful about leaving ourselves open to lawsuits. So I won't name anybody in specific there. But they just want power. They don't care about anything else. Then you've got the schizoids, which are the intellectual types. So they become the type of people that justify through ideological reasons why the essential psychopaths should be in power. So they end up kind of becoming a symbiotic, like you can think about them as like the academics.
Yep.
And so they end up becoming like a little bit symbiotic. And we've seen this in this scenario. Okay, so you have the rulers, they fund the academics to then come up with certain theories and socioeconomic theories to say, this is why we need these things that you want to happen to occur. So those people are doing it just simply because they want to also have some sort of power, but they know they have to kind of be like leeches more than anything. And then you've got the spellbinders, who these are like the charismatic Hollywood types, the media propagators that then end up making these ideas that the schizoids have created become popular among society. They become the propagandists for these ideas. Yeah. And then you've got the spellbound, which are the everyday average people, say the woke kids and all this kind of stuff that buy these ideas wholesale. And then you've got bystanders who just go, the world's going crazy, but
head in the sand.
My head in the sand. Yeah. And then you've got people that actually push back, who end up usually getting stomped on by boots.
Yep.
But
getting used to it at least.
But to your point, that's where I think these different things, these differing incentives go on to different people differently. So like, it's not just that for some people, it's the economics.
No. Yeah. I appreciate what you're saying. The macro perspective would be economics. and reshaping the country so it survives. But to do that, you've got all these little components that actually bring that to life, and you create all these little opportunities for people that fit into those categories to make this all happen.
Right.
So you need all of the ingredients to make the cake. When I say economics, that's the completed cake. But there's all these ingredients that bring it together that have to be baked in order to give you that product. So that's why I say macro, but micro, that's a great way of breaking it down. Totally agreed.
Yeah, so just to cap this off, okay, if you want to create a Canada 2.0 system, and not everybody has to be aware that you're doing this, it's just, okay, you've got the essential psychopaths who want to bring more and more people into this country because they view them as easier to control from these developed nations, and they also see them as a future tax base. Then you've got the schizoids who create these ideas of an open border utopian world. Nothing could go wrong. We just all need to be peace loving, holding hands, and we'll all be equal. And then you've got the spellbinders, the CBC types who just go, look how virtuous I am for spreading these ideas into the masses. And then you've got the everyday people who just don't want to be called racist for going, hey, I don't know if this really is a good idea. And so they just go along with it as well. It's all just self-preservation from each group.
Hate this place.
Anything else you wanted to add today?
No, that was it.
All right, before we get out of here, don't forget to head over to our Substack where you can sign up for our newsletter, which goes out 5 days a week. That's blendrnews.com, BLENDR news.com. You can also find all the sources that we use for the stories in the podcast. And we thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye, everybody.